Again, welcome. My name is Beth Wofford. This is November 13th, 2018. Our guest tonight is Bonnie Rogers, who is a multiple business owner, but primarily what we're going to hear about tonight is she is a dog breeder and has multiple stories of how these redox molecules have helped her animals. So Bonnie, we're delighted you're here to join us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Beth, for allowing me to be on here and share tonight. My name is Bonnie, but I sometimes go by Bonita because that's my legal name. So some of you may know me as one or the other or both. Doesn't matter. So I'm actually grew up on a little farm in Minnesota, the youngest of 8 kids. So I've always been a really fierce animal lover, and they were mostly my best friends when I grew up. Most of my friends were animals. So I now have to get my slide to advance, and it doesn't want to. We did this last night, Beth. Give it a second. It's going to take off here. I actually live in western Montana, just about as west as you can get. I may have to stop the share and go back and try it again. I'm not sure.
I think if you just maybe
let's try it that way.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. So Missoula, Montana is way out here in the west, and I actually live about 50 miles east of Missoula in a little town called Lincoln, but it's actually the closest town to me is called Ovando. Ovando has about a population of 50 people, and it's got well over 100 dogs. It's a pretty, like most little western towns in Montana, it's pretty rugged and rustic. It's got a few little stores. It's got a little museum. It does have a little gas station, and of course a couple of bars. So this is the little town of Ovando from the mountain view, and so you can see it's not very big. We do have beautiful mountain ranges, gorgeous visions to look at no matter where you look. We have lots of we have a few lakes and lots of creeks, and it's actually in the Blackfoot Valley. And so if you ever watch the river runs through it, that's the valley that they spoke about in the Blackfoot River. In the summertime, sometimes unfortunately we have a lot of fire and a lot of smoke, so sometimes it looks like this. But in the wintertime, we usually have lots and lots of snow. So speaking of rugged and rustic, this is my little gift shop that my sons and my grandkids made for me a few years ago. And I sell different things out of it, antiques, some collectibles, cards and prints from pictures that I take, and some carvings. So when I married my husband, he was a chainsaw sculptor, one of the most renowned sculptors in the world, and did tons and tons of pieces that are all over the world. And when he had to retire, I just kept carving. So these are some of the things I've done in the last couple of years. But then a while back, 6-7 years ago, my husband had an illness, and because we were dealing with this, our life took an unexpected turn. And because of that, we were blessed to be introduced to a scientific technology that is 100% safe and non-toxic to all living things. So now, 5 years later, I actually spend my time sharing this information with people and teaching people how their own bodies can actually help repair themselves with this technology. Our body is an amazing self-healing mechanism, and if you give it the right resources, it will take care of itself. And it's not just our bodies, it's all bodies. In fact, every living thing, every human cell, every plant cell, and every animal cell. So redox signaling is simply the communication system that all cells use to detect, protect, repair, or replace themselves. And now, for the first time, we are so fortunate because for the first time in history of the world, we have the ability to supplement our own bodies and the bodies of every species of animal on the planet with redox signaling molecules. So now I'd love to share some of my redox signaling success stories that are near and dear to my heart. I am an animal breeder, a dog breeder. For years, we bred German Shepherds, and then we downsized and got into Pomeranians. So we have a couple of females and we have a male. Uh, Smaller food bill, less poop. You know, it's a win-win. So this is our male Easy, and our first story happened shortly after we started using these products ourselves. We noticed one day that he actually had a couple of small growths on his eyes. He had a real tiny one on his right eye and then a little bit larger one on his left eye. And it's the same type of growth that humans get in elderly years. And we thought, wow, well, let's see what these magic molecules will do. And so we started spraying. My husband decided he was going to be the one to spray him. So a couple of times a day, he would call him up on his lap and he would hold his eye open and he would gently spray the mist into his eye. And he was very diligent at it for a month or two. And then he was kind of haphazard, and then it was kind of hit and miss. And so it wasn't really a consistent thing every single day, but when he would think of it, then he would do it. So it was about 8 months before we realized that he was spraying nothing, because there was just nothing there anymore. He actually had brand new looking corneas. There was nothing on them. There's no growth there, and they are completely clear. We also have our two females. Eva is a tricolored party Pomeranian, and Honey is a chocolate merle. And although we don't supplement them a lot of the times because they are young, and it's not really required. If you're young and healthy, you don't need a lot of extra supplementation with redox signaling. But when they have the occasional upset stomach, or they have, Eva cut her little toe pad once last year and we used the gel on her toe and healed that up in a day or so. But when I do use it is before they have their puppies, a couple weeks before they're due to whelp, I will start giving them about an ounce twice a day. You can just put it in a bowl and they'll drink it right up. And then I continue on until a couple weeks after their puppies, just to primarily ensure that they have, beautiful redox deliveries. They have healthy, happy puppies when they're born, and their deliveries go smoothly. And then we're preventing any kind of infection that they could possibly have too. Excuse me. And then, of course, all the babies are redox signaling users as well. They start out as brand new newborns. I use the redox gel and apply it to their umbilical cords just to make sure that there's no infection or anything can enter their bodies that way. And anytime that they have, maybe an upset tummy or the occasional kitty scratch, because we do have a kitty that helps raise these puppies and she doesn't take much from them. So I also mentioned the fire seasons. We were blessed with the summer of 2018. We hardly had any smoke and no fires in Montana. But 2017 was a horrendous year. We had over 1 million acres of Montana burn up. The smoke can be horrendous. We actually at one point had the nation's top rated fire 7 miles from our back door. It was toxic levels of smoke and levels that went on week after week. I think at one time I heard we were breathing toxic air for 39 days in a row. A lot of people were sick. A lot of elderly people and young children were removed from the area because their lungs just simply could not take it. A lot of people had upper respiratory issues. We actually use a little machine that turns the molecules into a mist, and we could breathe it, and helps to maintain healthy lung tissue. For the dogs, we actually just sprayed it, in their faces, and they kind of inhale and gets it into their lungs as well as drinking it. And then, of course, we spray it in our eyes anytime we have fatigue, or we take it with us when we're driving. We spray it when our eyes get tired from driving, but it's wonderful for soothing it from the irritation of smoke. And we sprayed the dog's eyes as well. Most of these fires, unfortunately, were season-ending fires, meaning they only go out when the snow smothers them out. So we're really glad when we don't have those kind of summers. Along about Christmas time, Honey had a litter of puppies just after Christmas, and she actually had 4 babies. They were about a week old here. So little Duke was about 7 days old in this picture, and a couple of days after that, we woke up and were snowed in. We have this lovely plow truck out in the middle of the picture here that wouldn't start. So we were snowed in, and a day after that, poor little Duke got sick. So I don't know what happened to him, because 9 times out of 10 or more than that, most times puppies or any babies of any kind are protected by their mama's antibodies, and they don't generally get sick. But he had a respiratory issue that was life-threatening. He had a temperature of 104, and he actually was not able to nurse because he couldn't breathe. His nasal passages were so full, and his lungs were so congested, you could actually hear him breathing from the other room. So we tried to give him the redox liquid molecules, but trying to hold on to that squiggly little 10-day-old puppy and get his mouth pried open and get the dropper in his mouth, we were getting more of the liquid on the outside of him than we were on the inside. So we decided that we would just go ahead and try the gel. So we slathered his little tummy, the bottoms of his feet, the inside of his ears, even the roof of his mouth with the redox gel. And within just a short period of time, his breathing got easier, his symptoms started to subside, but then not long after that, they would start to come back. So we actually set the timer on my phone, and for every 2 hours, I got up around the clock and slathered that baby's tummy, feet, inside his ears, and the roof of his mouth with the redox gel. About every other time, we did the other 3 puppies because we didn't want them getting sick. We didn't know if what he had was contagious. And so after 3 days, his temperature was completely normal. He was breathing fine, nursing. He was doing very, very well, and none of the other puppies ever got sick. So this is him at about 16 days. He's the first one, front one out here, the fat little porker. Doesn't look like he ever missed a meal. He just continued to grow and was healthy. This is he with his little sister Esmeralda at about 5 weeks. He never relapsed, had a perfectly wonderful childhood, played with the other kids all day, and he and Esmeralda again at 6 weeks. I show you Esmeralda because you will see her later on in the story. At this age, his hair was growing so long, he actually had a comb over on the top of his head. I don't know if you can see that, but it was so doggone cute. So at 7 weeks, he was a very happy kid and getting out of the pen and causing all kinds of chaos in the household. And at 8 weeks, he went with his half-brother Buddy, and they moved to Wyoming, to his permanent home. This is Rooster. Rooster belongs to my friend Roxanne that lives in Virginia. And Rooster is a red-eyed tree frog from South America. And Rooster lives in an aquarium, very happy, croaky little girl frog. And there came a time when Roxanne noticed that she was sleeping on the bottom of her aquarium, not on the side of the wall. She was not awake a lot, and she had started to bloat and stop eating. So Roxanne had called the pet shop where she got her, called a couple other places. Nobody knew what to do. So she actually, because I had talked about it and she was smart enough to decide, I need this in my household, she had the redox signaling liquid in her home and the gel as well. And so she started spraying little Rooster with the redox signaling molecules and rubbing the Renew 28 gel with a Q-tip on her back. And within a short time, she was back to her normal self, sleeping on the side of the aquarium, croaking, and doing all the happy little frog things that she could do. So we know that it doesn't matter what kind of species it is, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, they all can use the redox signaling supplement sometimes. So yeah, I know if you've got dogs, it doesn't matter what kind of food you feed them. It doesn't matter how clean you feed them. Sometimes they just have bad breath. And so we've learned a long time ago that if you use the redox signaling liquid and you spray it in their mouth, not only do they have excellent gum health and their teeth are nice, they actually have really good breath. So this is little tiny Esmeralda in the back here, and she was a happy, healthy baby. She always was very healthy when she was went to live with her new family. It was in central Montana. And at that time, her family also got the redox signaling in their house. And when she was about 4 months old, I got a call from her mom, and she had been playing one evening and tearing around the house with their other dogs. And all of a sudden, she couldn't put any weight on one of her back legs. And they thought she had just tweaked it or sprained it or something. So it was close to bedtime, and they put her in a crate where she slept all night. And in the morning, they thought she would be fine. In the morning, she wasn't fine. She couldn't put any weight on her leg at all. And this is a hard picture to understand, but it's actually her little butt, and this is her little leg and her foot she's holding up. So they took her to the vet, and the vet x-rayed her, and she had this middle break, this spiral break on her femur. And so the vet's answer was a $1,200 surgery to repair the break, an $800 amputation, just take the whole leg off, or wait and see what happens. And he said it would be probably 8 to 12 weeks before they would know if it was going to heal or not, and that they needed to keep her immobilized as much as possible. So he taught them how to wrap her leg, and they were able to keep her wrapped up for a few days. But Esmeralda didn't really agree with the doctor, what the doctor was saying, and would squiggle her little leg out pretty quickly. But they continued. They gave her the CL redox liquid 4 times a day. They gave her an ounce every time, so they gave her the equivalent of 4 ounces a day. And I got a video 10 days later. And as soon as I figure out how the heck to upload a video to my PowerPoint, I'm going to do that. But as yet, I don't know how to do it. So this is Esmeralda on the left, 10 days after her break. And she was running around and jumping on her back legs and acting like there was not one thing wrong with her. And she would occasionally limp a couple of steps and then go right back to tearing around. And she never looked back. She was fine. There was no 8 to 12 weeks recovery. It was 10 days. And this is her as an adult, beautiful little black pom. This is Miss Puttins, and Miss Puttins, it belongs to my niece and lives in Minnesota. When she was about 4 months old, they came home from work, and she was not putting any weight on one of her back legs. They took her to the vet, and she had a broken hip. Now, the only way I can figure out a 4-month-old kitten breaks her hip is she just misjudged a jump and fell and broke her little hip. So it was the same thing. The vet wanted to do a $2,000 surgery to pin the hip or amputate it. They decided to just take her home and see how she went. And the vet said, okay, if you do that, you need to confine her. You need to keep her in a very small room. So they put her in a bathroom and put her litter box, her little bed, her food and water in there. And the vet at that time said it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks before you see any improvement and see if it's going to heal on its own or not. So about 3 weeks later, they came home and she was in the sink. So the only way that she could get into the sink was to jump. With a broken hip, they thought, you know what, we're just not keeping this kitten locked up anymore. She continued to heal and take her redox signaling. And so 6 months, she was absolutely perfectly healed and has never looked back. So remember Easy with his beautiful corneas, and he just had such wonderful, wonderful looking eyes. Well, one day last winter, he and the girls were outside playing, and they came in, and I noticed he was holding his right eye closed. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I picked him up and had to pry his eye open, and I just about died because I thought, oh my gosh. My husband had just left and taken the vehicle to go fishing for the day, and I was stuck at home with no vehicle, and otherwise I would have been in the car on the way to the vet. I did not take a picture of this eye. Frankly, it never even occurred to me. And I don't think I could have handled him opening his eye and managing the camera at the same time. But this is, I found one on the internet that looked very, very similar to, and this is what it looked like. It was gray, it was wrinkled, it was flat, and I thought it had been punctured. I didn't know what could have possibly happened. I love how this says, eye injuries are emergencies. Don't wait 2 weeks. Consult your vet within 24 hours. Yeah. So I immediately started spraying the redox liquid in his eye, and I was just panicking. I wasn't seeing any results. You know, obviously it was soothing to him. It felt better. But the more I thought about it, I thought the strongest redox product we have in the house is actually the serum. The serum is actually manufactured and marketed as an anti-aging serum for lines and dark spots and wrinkles and that kind of thing. But it has a very fine needle point, and I squeezed a fine line of it into his eye, blinked his eye over it a few times, and did that 2 or 3 times. By the time my husband got home, he looked in his eye and he said, well, that doesn't look too bad. I said, are you kidding? And I looked and it had already improved so much I was amazed. But I continued to put the serum in his eyes a few more times the next day. And it was the most miraculous thing, because within 24 hours, his cornea did not show any evidence that there had been any kind of injury to it at all. It never, ever would have occurred to me that an eye could heal that rapidly. But as we know, the product that I put in his eye wasn't actually what was doing it. His own body was healing. This was just providing it with the signaling that it needed for the cells to know what to do. We continuously, for several days, there was little things coming out of the corner of his eye, and I think what they it was the bad cells that the body was kicking out, because it had already replaced them with normal healthy cells, and it was just getting rid of the bad stuff. This is our 17-year-old cat, Willow. And for the first 15 years of her life, Willow was an outdoor cat. She didn't really care to come in the house, probably because there was all those Pomeranians, I don't know. But finally, when we did realize that she probably should come in the house, at least in the wintertime, 40 below is not really very fun to be out if you have old achy bones. And so we brought her in the house, and then quickly realized that she wasn't getting around like she should have been. She wasn't able to jump on the couch very comfortably or onto a bed. So we started giving her the redox signaling liquid, and like Miss Puttins, she would drink the liquid right out of a bowl. This old cat, she absolutely hates worm medicine. She's, at 17 years old, she's been wormed well over 30 times in her life, and every single time it's a battle. And every time you try to give her something that's out of the ordinary, she thinks it's a trick, and she thinks what you're doing is trying to worm her. And so we actually have to hold her and give her the liquid, but she's actually gotten better. She doesn't put up as much of a fight as she used to, but she actually, as soon as, within 2 or 3 days of giving her the molecules, she was jumping up on the couch and, actually attempting to play a little bit with the Pomeranians, which is like so beneath her dignity. I'm just amazed that she's doing that. So now she's just a healthy, happy cat. And at 17, I don't know how long we'll have her, but I think we'll have her for a while yet. So finally, we have Ransom. Ransom, as you can see, is a bloodhound. He actually grew up with a litter of Poms in the house. Pommies loved to pull on his ears. It actually looks like he's nursing. He's not. He's just watching. These pictures absolutely have nothing to do with his story, but they were just so doggone cute, I had to share them with you. So he's always been a redox supplement dog, because his favorite toy as a puppy was to play with an empty bottle. So the face of a bloodhound is seemingly always sad. They kind of have a corner on that market. But when he was 14 months old, one day he got up and he simply could not put any weight on his left hind leg. And in fact, if he did, he just screamed. He was in so much discomfort. And we tried to figure out where that pain was emanating from. We palpated that dog from one end to the other. We didn't know if it was his back, his hip, his leg, his foot, his toes, but he would not tell us. And so, we were preparing to load him up to take him to the vet. And then we thought about it and thought, you know what, he's not telling us where the pain is or the discomfort. He's not going to tell the vet either. And so we just decided, you know what, let's try him on the redox signaling for a day or two. If it doesn't help, we'll just take him to the vet then. So I actually got a syringe, and I filled it with 2 ounces of the ASEA liquid, and opened his mouth and shot it down his throat. And I'll tell you, he was kind of surprised because his mom had never done that to him before. And seemingly it must have felt, you know, better immediately, because twice a day I would show up with that syringe. And let me tell you, this is 110 pounds of, if I don't want to, I'm not going to. But seemingly he would sit down and let me open his mouth and administer the molecules twice a day. So we did that for a week, and he progressively got better and better every single day. And so by the end of the bottle, in a week when it was gone, he was back to his old self. He was playing and running and jumping, and did not have that horrible, horrible, sad face on. Actually looked like a different kind of dog than a bloodhound for a couple days. But he was standing and walking and running and using that leg just like he did normally, even swimming. And so we are just so grateful. And, you know, I don't know what in your area of the country, what a vet visit costs or what x-rays are or the treatment, but I know exactly how much we spent for that treatment for him. It was $32.50 for one bottle. And we were so blessed and so grateful that we tried that instead of who knows how many other treatments we would have gone through to try to figure out what was wrong with him. So he's back to his normal self and doing everything else he always did. He's 3 years old and has never had a reoccurrence of that injury, which is so common that injuries can flare up over and over and over again, and we never have had that problem. So that's the end of my presentation. And if anybody that I invited to this webinar would like to contact me, you can contact me on Facebook or at this number. Please don't text me at this number because it is a home number, and I don't have cell service in the mountains where we live. So I can actually answer your phone call if you call that number or call you back. If you're interested in viewing hundreds of other animal testimonies that are on the Facebook, just like these, ask the person who invited you to this webinar how to make this happen. And then for more information or to get redox signaling molecules in the house for your animals and the animals in your life, contact the person who invited you to this webinar. And this webinar has been recorded, and to review it, simply ask the one who invited you for access. I hope this information was helpful to you all and that you'll consider adding redox signaling supplement to your daily regimen to provide your pet with a longer, healthier, happier life. Thank you. Back to you, Beth.